Hello, YouTubers and fellow Affordaplane builders. This is Terry Adair in Houston, Texas, building the Affordaplane. I have a little bit of an update. For our last video, we had to dismount the engine and take the airplane apart. I had a accidental backfeed into my ignition's CDI module, and that caused the well. I can't say that I'm an expert on the field, but my understanding is it caused a backfeed of electricity to go through the engine due to a poor grounding circuit. So, Matt Dandar at RPE sent me my new ignition module, and there it is right there on the top of the engine. And somewhere around here, we have the old one that he sent back. In addition to that, I also ordered these Berry mount snub washers, which I've put on the engine, and those are much better than what I had on there. You know, these little fellas here, just, you know, they weren't really making me feel real good inside. So it is time, and I went ahead and replaced those. Also, you can tell by looking at the engine, I've got a ground from the top of the motor down to the frame, and I also have a negative wire going to the motor directly. And in addition to that, maybe a little bit overkill, but there's another small ground wire right there, 16 gauge. So we've got our 6 gauge wires going to the motor, going to the starter, the solenoid, and then we have our power lead and our starter solenoid lead. They come in here. And I've bundled everything up in flex tubing. All the wiring I went through, double checked, so to make sure that everything was good, and everything looked great. So we put everything back together, reorganized the wiring, and put on some new connections over here. Have my power coming into here to the regulator. This is one of my signal wires with the tachometer going over to the engine. And that one right there also goes back to the engine. And of course we got a ground mounted here. This ground comes into the harness and it goes over here to our engine information system. Basically our engine instruments. And I have this very large bundle of leftover wire from the engine information system that I'm just storing here in case I ever want to expand on the capabilities of this engine information system. So in addition to putting the wiring all inside the flex tubing and putting the electrical tape all the way around it, I've also changed a few things. Let me walk over to the other side. So if you guys have followed me at all, you will know that the reason that we had to send those CDIs back was because of a grounding issue. So I'm trying to take very good care to make sure that all my grounds are very secure. In this tube right here, I have my grounding circuit for killing the engine, and of course that goes over here to my mag switches, and those mag switches are grounded here to the frame. Now I did have a small screw such as this here on that outside engine, that's an outside air temperature gauge, and it's grounded with the little screw. That's not so critical, I don't think, but this one is more critical because this is for the mag, and I definitely wanted to make sure that didn't come off. So I went ahead and put a little ring connector on there so that it can't slide out, and I also used a little AN3 nut and washer and bolt to tighten that down so that that cannot possibly come loose. So we did that. Also, here's a Berry mounts on this side of the engine, and I now have a lot of clearance between these bolts, whereas before they were actually just touching the plate down there, and that was not good. Of course, that kind of defeats the purpose of isolating these with the rubber brackets. But I used some of these washers to stack it up, and I got those Berry snub washers. Thanks to one of my YouTube subscribers, who happen to have a part number handy. You know, you can see the assortment of washers that I have tried to just buy locally. And, you know, although some of them are very close, no cigar. And these right here actually had the diameter that I was looking for, the inner diameter. They're not very strong. I mean, compare. The berry is much thicker, much stronger. So I'm very happy he told me about those. And that is going to be good. Okay, so in addition to that, we're going to hold off a little bit before we put our covers back on. Just want to go ahead and get the prop on. And we'll do some more run-ups. We'll get to see how the 175 main jets that Matt sent me are going to perform, keeping those cylinder head temperatures down. But we also put a little bit of a label kit on here. And we got a label for our primer, our left mag, our right mag, our master switch, engine instruments, our warning light, and our starter. So that adds a little bit of uniqueness, or not uniqueness, but it adds to it. And then we have the fuel selector on switch down there. Pull it down to turn it on. Also, found these stickers here. Work great for the throttle. Push to open. And then we also have a friction lock, which we use right here. We just turn it down, and that allows the throttle to stick wherever we put it. And if we just want freedom of movement, we do that, and of course it releases the friction, and now we can move it at will. So those are the things that we've managed to take care of. Also, I know on the Affordaplane page I posted pictures of the new instrument panel. I don't know that I've done a video yet on YouTube, so I'll go ahead and let y'all know I did replace the instrument panel. Some of the things I noticed after running the engine a while is that I was developing some small cracks on the panel. It was made out of 32 thousandths aluminum, and it was just a little bit too thin, I believe. So this is 65 thousandths, and while I went ahead and rebuilt this here panel, I also installed new down tubes here. And you can see I put that little machining on it. And I did that with a Scotch-Brite pad. Just a little 2-inch pad that I put on a Velcro sanding disc on my drill. And it gives it a really nice look. So replace both of those down tubes over here and over here. And the reason I originally purchased the 65 thousandths was to make this new battery box. That too was made out of 32 thousandths, and it was really bad. It was stress cracks all over it. So one of the good things about running the engine on the ground is you get to identify some of the weak areas in the build and take care of them right away, you know, before you get this thing flying around. I don't think the battery would have fallen out because you got those cables holding it, but it would have been hanging for sure. So keep a close eye on your projects, guys, as you're building. You know, once you turn that engine on, it changes. The whole ball game changes. That's when you start to see what's going to hold together and what you need to go back and readdress. So far, we haven't had any real issues. You know, we had the issues a while back with the cables, and again, that was a mistake on my part for purchasing the wrong cable sleeves. But we've got the correct ones now, and I doubled them up down there. They've been doing great, and the rudder cables did not come loose. But again, for my own reassurance, I went ahead and restrung the rudder cables, and I did the same thing with those. The only thing I did is I added those little shackles to the rudder pedal so that those are bolted on with some AN3 nuts. And that's because everything's, you know, it's closed in. When I built it the first time, it was open and I could get in there with the swedging tool and I could crimp them down, but you can't do that now. So I made the cables outside the airplane and put the shackles on, and now I can hook it on and take it off at will. And we ran the new cables all the way back, and I also put on these new rudder compression springs on the, or tail wheel compression springs, and I really like these a lot better. They look a little more authentic, and I think they're going to function a lot better as well. So it's a little cold out today. I really anticipated getting out here and doing more work, but well, a southerner in Houston, it's been 49, 50 degrees, and I think I've been spending most of my day sitting on the couch under a warm blanket watching Netflix. But I did want to get out here and put these new washers on. They showed up today, and tighten that engine mount down. And then of course I put the little stickers on. So I'm holding true to, you know, making sure I do a little bit each day. And I'm looking forward to putting the prop back on, putting the muffler on. I think there was something else I wanted to do before I put that muffler on. I can't remember what it was, but I know there was something else that I was going to do before I put it on. I'm going to have to think real hard about that. So anyway, the prop and the windscreen are in the house. We've got the tins over here for the top. I do have to come back and re-drill these. I've marked these holes where they need to be, and I just laid my tins back on the top of this, and that way they'll match up just as they did before. But you can see how, just like before, we relief cut it and bent it right on around all the way across there. So things are a little bit better organized, and I think we're a lot more protected as far as the wiring goes. I've left this wire out. This is a positive wire. During the process of backfeeding or destroying my CDI, I also destroyed my DC-DC converter, so I picked up another one of those on Amazon. And let's see, today's Monday. It's supposed to come in tomorrow, and I'll be able to wire that back in. And it was grounded here with this little lead, so I'll hook all that up, and then I'll run my charging circuit back in for the Galaxy Note 8, which sits right here. And this is our EFIS in-flight navigation heads-up display that will go on there, along with a couple other apps I use for navigation as well. You know, I know the area pretty well, but it's fun to have them because you can identify airports and just fly directly to them if you want. But anyway, that's pretty much going to be about it for this video. We'll get back with you guys later. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the videos. We really look forward to hearing your comments, and we're trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers. So help us out a little bit. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and share with your friends that have an interest in aviation and ultralight flying. This is Terry Adair in Houston, Texas, with the Affordaplane, signing out. You guys have a nice afternoon.